Nothing changes until you change your identity. Not your clothes, not your habits for a week, not the goals you scribble down at midnight. Your identity. The invisible story you tell yourself about who you are. The quiet whisper beneath every decision. The unseen architect of your reactions, your expectations, and your fate. Until that shifts, nothing in your outer world can shift, because the outer world is only a mirror, reflecting the inner one with stunning accuracy. You can try to force action. You can push, hustle, grind, and discipline yourself into exhaustion. But if your inner self concept contradicts your efforts, the old reality will always snap back into place. The world cannot hold a shape you refuse to embody. You cannot rise higher than the image you accept as you. Transformation begins not by rearranging the world, but by rearranging the one who sees the world. Every experience in your life is an echo of your internal identity. Think about it. You never act beyond the limits of who you believe you are. If you believe you're unlucky, your mind will filter life to confirm it. If you believe you are unworthy, you'll sabotage blessings before they fully arrive. If you quietly identify as someone who always struggles, then even when opportunities appear, you'll find ways to shrink back into the familiar. The world bends to the version of you you're most loyal to. Identity is not built by what you want. Identity is built by what you accept. You can want success, but identify as someone who fails. You can want confidence, but identify as someone who stays quiet. You can want abundance, but identify as someone who is always trying to survive. And the identity always wins. It is the strongest force in your life because it shapes your beliefs, and your beliefs shape your reality. So the question is not, what do you want? The real question is, who are you willing to become? Who do you choose to be when no one is watching? Who do you choose to be in your thoughts, in your imagination, in the silent conversations with yourself? Every moment you are declaring an identity, whether intentionally or by default. And life is responding to the declaration. If you want a new life, you must stop arguing for the old version of yourself. Stop retelling the story of your pain as if it defines you. Stop defending your limitations as if they are your personality. Stop worshipping memories that no longer serve the future you are trying to create. You must be brave enough to let go of the identity that has been built on fear, survival, and scarcity. You must be bold enough to step into the identity that matches the life you desire. Because identity is not fate, it is a choice. It is not fixed, it is fluid. You became who you are now through repetition, belief, and emotional attachment. And you can become someone entirely different through the same process. But it must start within. You cannot pretend your way into transformation. You must assume it. You must feel it. You must wear it in your imagination until it feels more natural than the old story. Think of the identity you want, not the title. Not the money, not the recognition, the identity, the internal self concept of the person who lives the life you desire. How do they think? How do they speak? What do they believe about themselves? What do they expect when they wake up in the morning? What do they feel when they face challenges? What do they allow? What do they refuse to entertain? Your task is not to chase results. Your task is to inhabit that identity now. Because when identity shifts, behavior follows effortlessly. Choices align naturally. Opportunities synchronize. People respond differently. Life reorganizes itself. You begin acting in ways you didn't even know you were capable of. Not because you forced yourself, but because you became someone for whom those actions are normal. This is why change feels impossible when you cling to an old identity. You cannot evolve while insisting on being the same person. You cannot transform while carrying the narrative of the version of you who suffered. You cannot attract new outcomes while identifying as the one who lost. You must release the identity that is attached to your history and step into the identity that is connected to your destiny. Every identity carries a vibration, a frequency, a lens through which you interpret your experiences. And that frequency magnetizes circumstances that match it. When you shift the identity, the frequency shifts. When the frequency shifts, life shifts with it. This is not magic, it is alignment. It is coherence between the inner world and the outer world. It is the natural law that what you embody internally must eventually appear externally. You were never stuck. You were simply loyal to an identity that no longer reflects your potential. You were trapped not by circumstances, but by self-concept. You were limited not by reality, but by the story you kept telling yourself about who you were allowed to be. And the moment you decide to change that story, truly, deeply, unapologetically, the world responds instantly. The shift begins within seconds, because identity is the root of all transformation. So declare a new identity today, not out of desperation, not out of hope, but out of conviction. Step into the version of you who already has the clarity, the confidence, the strength, the abundance, the peace. Speak as them, think as them, imagine as them, expect as them, feel as them. This is not pretending, this is deciding. And decision is the birthplace of change. Nothing changes until you change your identity. But the moment you do, everything changes. The world rearranges itself to match the new version of you. Doors that were once invisible begin to appear. Paths that once felt impossible become obvious. You stop fighting life and life starts cooperating with you. You stop chasing and begin attracting. You stop surviving and begin creating. Choose your identity with intention. Choose boldly. Choose without apology. Because the world you desire is waiting for you, not as you are, but as who you choose to become. Create. You are not the sum of what happened to you. You are the sum of what you continue to accept. Identity is permission. When you cling to old stories, you grant those stories permission to shape your life again and again. When you release them, you revoke their power. Nothing changes until you withdraw your loyalty to the character you no longer want to play. And don't be fooled. Identity is not changed by force. It is changed by assumption. By inhabiting a new version of yourself in thought long before the world reflects it back to you. Every great transformation begins in the unseen. You step into the identity internally, and the outer world rearranges itself to match. The moment you begin imagining yourself as someone who is worthy, confident, powerful, abundant, disciplined, or successful, you start broadcasting a new frequency. You move differently, speak differently, choose differently. You no longer ask for permission to become who you desire to be. You simply start being them. You begin to behave from your new identity instead of toward it. That shift is where miracles ignite. But understand this, the old identity will try to pull you back. It will whisper reasons why you should doubt, why you should wait, why you should stay the same. Not because it is malicious, but because the familiar feels safe. The mind loves what it knows, even when what it knows is painful. Comfort zones are not comfortable, they are predictable. And identity thrives on predictability. You must recognize when you are slipping back into the old version of yourself. Not to shame yourself, but to consciously choose again. Change is not a single decision. It is a repeated decision. Every moment offers a fork in the road, the self you were or the self you are becoming. And with every choice, the new identity grows stronger. When you claim a new identity, you must treat it as truth, not a possibility. You don't test drive it. You don't try it on for a week. You don't keep checking if the outer world has changed yet. You decide, you step into it, you wear it. You live from it with unwavering conviction. And the world, though sometimes slow to catch up, will ultimately yield. If you want to know who you believe you are, look at what you tolerate. Look at what you allow. Look at what you keep repeating, even though you know it's not aligned with where you want to be. Look at what you apologize for, what you hide, what you underestimate about yourself. These are clues, not to shame you, but to awaken you. Identity is not destiny, it's a choice. And choices can be rewritten. You are not trapped. You are not fixed. You are not obligated to continue being a version of yourself you have outgrown. The world may remember the old you, but you are not here to live in their memory. You are here to live in your becoming. You must learn to declare boldly, that is who I was. This is who I am now. And each time the old identity tries to resurface, gently remind yourself that you are no longer available for the life that came with that version of you. That version had limits. That version lived in survival. That version accepted less than they deserved. You don't owe that version your future. A powerful identity shift begins with radical inner honesty. Ask yourself, who would I be without the story of my past? Who would I be if I didn't fear judgment? Who would I be if I fully believed I deserved greatness? Who would I be if I didn't accept limitations passed down by people who never saw their own potential? Your mind knows the answer instantly. Your intuition has always known. The true you is not a mystery. It's the version you glimpse in moments of quiet clarity, in moments of inspiration, in moments when something inside you whispers, this is who you really are. But most people silence that voice because it contradicts their habitual identity. You must give that voice authority. Changing your identity is not pretending. It is remembering. The real you is the one beneath the layers of fear, conditioning, doubt, and social expectations. Identity is not something you acquire. It is something you uncover. The world will test your commitment to your new self. Opportunities will arise that are aligned with your old self. People will challenge your growth. Circumstances will tempt you to shrink. But every test is also a doorway. You have the power to choose the version of yourself who responds. Nothing changes until you take ownership of your internal narrative. This is the story that writes your life. You must speak differently about yourself. Think differently about yourself. Feel differently about yourself. Every transformation begins with identity, and identity begins with inner language. Stop saying you are stuck. Stop saying you are broken. Stop saying you are unlucky. Stop saying you always fail. These statements are not reflections of reality. They are instructions you give to your subconscious mind. Your subconscious does not interpret. It obeys. Identity is forged in repetition. Not repetition of actions, repetition of belief. The more consistently you inhabit your chosen identity in imagination, the faster the outer world conforms. You must internalize the feelings of the future version of yourself until they feel normal. Normal is the key. When the new identity becomes your emotional home, the world has no choice but to align with it. Do not wait for evidence. Evidence comes after belief, not before. Your new identity must be lived internally long before it is visible externally. You must be willing to feel like the person you desire to become even while your current circumstances contradict it. This is the great test of transformation. The willingness to remain loyal to the unseen. The world calls this delusion. But the world only calls impossible what it hasn't personally experienced. Those who refuse to think beyond what they see remain bound to what they see. But you are not here to live by sight alone. You are here to shape sight. You are not meant to repeat yesterday. You are meant to create tomorrow. Think of your identity as the thermostat of your life. You may try to raise the temperature by taking action, but if your identity is set to the old level, your life will eventually cool back down. You can only sustain the level of success, love, abundance, and confidence that matches your self-concept. So instead of fighting the outer conditions, change the internal setting. Raise the standard of who you believe you are, and life will rise with it. If you desire love, become someone who believes they are lovable. If you desire wealth, become someone who identifies as abundant. If you desire confidence, become someone who sees themselves as powerful. If you desire transformation, become someone who sees change as natural. You cannot receive at a level you do not identify with. Identity precedes manifestation. And this is the liberation. You don't need permission to change. You don't need validation. You don't need approval. You need decision. Decision is the birthplace of identity. When you decide who you are, even before you see the evidence, you summon strength you didn't know you possessed. You must stop negotiating with the old version of yourself. Stop asking for their opinion. Stop consulting your past for guidance about your future. Your past cannot imagine your future because it has never been there. Only your vision can. Let yourself evolve. Let yourself grow. Let yourself become someone unfamiliar to your old stories. Let yourself walk away from the version of you that survived but never thrived. Let yourself rise into the identity that was always waiting beneath the noise of self-doubt and external expectations. Your true identity is not created by the world. It is revealed within you. And when you choose it, embody it, and stand firm in it, the world eventually recognizes it too, to the identity you've been unconsciously living from. And once you recognize the identity you've been loyal to, you gain the power to release it. Awareness is liberation. The moment you see the pattern, you're no longer trapped in it. You are standing outside of it, able to decide whether it deserves to stay or needs to go. A new identity is not built by waiting for evidence. It is built by generating evidence through the way you think and feel. You begin to imagine yourself differently. You sit with the feeling of being the person you wish to be until that feeling becomes more familiar than the old one. You rehearse it in your mind until it becomes natural. This is not delusion. This is creation. Every identity you've ever had was learned. And anything learned can be unlearned, replaced, rewritten. Identity is the root of your habits, and habits are simply the expression of who you believe yourself to be. When you shift identity, habits follow naturally without forcing. A person who identifies as disciplined doesn't fight themselves to wake up early. They simply do so because that's who they are. A person who identifies as confident doesn't struggle to speak up. They express themselves because confidence is woven into their sense of self. You don't fight for habits when the identity behind them is solid. You act from the identity effortlessly. But many people try to change their lives while keeping the same identity. They try to stack new habits on top of an old self-concept. They try to build transformation on a foundation that still says, I'm not worthy, I'm not capable, I'm not that type of person. It's like trying to paint a new picture on a canvas that hasn't been cleared. The old image keeps bleeding through. That's why change feels temporary. That's why results collapse. Because the identity was never upgraded, only the behavior was. The moment you decide, truly decide, that you are someone new, everything that contradicted that old identity begins to fall away. People fall away. Circumstances shift. Desires change. Priorities evolve. What mattered no longer matters, and what once felt impossible suddenly feels natural. Because your life always rearranges itself around your identity. Think about the times you surprised yourself by rising to a moment, when you did something bold, brave, or unexpected. In that instant, you tapped into a version of yourself that was always there but not fully claimed. Those moments show the truth. You are capable of far more than the identity you've been living with. The key is to stop waiting for special circumstances to access that version of you. You must invite that version forward daily, deliberately, consciously. You must declare, this is who I am now, and allow every thought, emotion, and action to align with that declaration. And you don't have to know how the world will change. You don't have to strategize or calculate every detail. When identity shifts, the how reveals itself naturally. You meet the right people, feel the right impulses, take inspired actions, and sense opportunities you once walked past without noticing. Identity sharpens awareness. The world is full of doors that only open for certain versions of you. When you become that version, the locks disappear. Many people fear stepping into a new identity because the old one feels safer, even when it's painful. They fear losing people, losing comfort, losing familiar patterns. But what they don't realize is that the identity they're clinging to is costing them more than they know. It is costing them joy, purpose, peace, potential. Every day you live from a limiting identity, the world reflects limitation right back at you. Transformation demands courage, not dramatic courage, but quiet courage. The courage to stop agreeing with old narratives. The courage to stop responding to life the way you used to. The courage to show up as the version of you that feels unfamiliar, even if others don't understand it yet. The courage to trust an identity before you see the physical evidence of it. Identity is not changed through time. Identity is changed through decision. You can spend years trying to improve yourself only to discover that improvement keeps you trapped in the old self, because improvement implies that who you are now is not enough. True transformation comes from replacement, not improvement. You don't improve the old identity, you replace it with a new one. You step into a new self, concept so fully that the old one feels like a distant memory. You must understand that identity is fluid. You are not fixed. You are not bound by who you have been. You are not nailed to your past. You are a fluid expression of consciousness, continually choosing who you want to be. But if you choose unconsciously, you repeat. If you choose consciously, you evolve. Every time you visualize the person you want to become, you activate that identity. Every time you speak as them, think as them, feel as them, you reinforce it. Every time you refuse to act from your old patterns, you weaken the grip of the old identity. This is how transformation happens. Not all at once, but moment by moment, choice by choice, assumption by assumption. There will be days when you feel like the old identity is pulling you back in. That's not failure. That's evidence of change. The old self is losing its grip, and it will try to survive by tempting you with familiar behaviors, familiar doubts, familiar emotions. But if you stay loyal to the identity you're becoming, the pull weakens. The old self dissolves. Identity is not what you do, it's the place you act from. Two people can take the same action with completely different results because the identity behind the action differs. One acts from fear, the other from certainty. One acts from lack, the other from abundance. One acts from survival, the other from creation. The action may look the same, but the energy behind it determines the outcome. When you shift identity, the energy from which you act transforms. You no longer chase, you attract. You no longer seek validation, you walk in self-belief. You no longer cling to control, you trust your path. You no longer fight life, you collaborate with it. You move differently when your identity is one of power rather than powerlessness. You don't need permission to change your identity. You don't need approval. You don't need someone else's acknowledgement. Identity is personal. It's sacred. It's internal. It's between you and the version of yourself you know you're capable of being. Who you were was necessary for your journey, but who you are becoming is necessary for your destiny. The identity you choose today will shape the opportunities you experience tomorrow. And the identity you refuse to release will keep you living in cycles you were meant to outgrow. There is a version of you that already contains everything you desire: confidence, clarity, purpose, abundance, peace, power. That version is waiting behind a single decision, the decision to stop being the person who doubts themselves, who shrinks, who hesitates, who waits for validation. You must step into the identity that aligns with the life you want, not the life you've had. Nothing changes until you do, and you do not change by fixing the world. You change by fixing the self you insist on being. When you become someone new internally, the outer world becomes something new automatically. Identity is the master key. When you change it, every locked door in your life begins to open. And so the moment arrives where you must choose remain loyal to the identity that built your past, or rise into the identity that can build your future. No one else can make that choice for you. No circumstance can force it. No miracle can replace the inner decision. You become who you decide to be, and the world simply mirrors that decision back to you. The life you want is not waiting for the right moment, the right opportunity, the right sign. It is waiting for you to become the person who naturally lives it. Change your identity, and your destiny will follow.